Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our live video. We are on today celebrating Boys Town History Week with two very special guests. My name is Gabby, joined here with Father Stephen Boes and Margaret Vacek, and we're going to be discussing the history of advocacy at Boys Town, because while it is History Week, it is also Youth Justice Action Month. So they tie very well together as Boys Town has a rich history in helping in these advocacy efforts. So we are going to go back and forth on several discussion questions related to this topic. So if you have a question for our guests, go ahead and leave it in the comment section of this video. Make sure you give it a like, and thanks for tuning in. So we'll start by having Father Boes. Would you please introduce yourselves for our guests who may not know you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Father Stephen Boes. I'm the president of Boys Town. So there's lots of parts to my role. So I am sort of like Father Flanagan, the spiritual role model for our kids and alumni and staff. I spend a lot of my time building relationships with kids here on campus and across the country. I also am one of the chief fundraisers here at Boys Town. I have relationships with a lot of our major donors. I lead the culture here at Boys Town, especially EDI, but all of our mission, vision, and values, and our strategic plan goals. But a final part of my job that's apropos to today's discussion is I'm really the national advocacy spokesperson. So with the help of Margaret and her team, we try to be recognized as experts in the areas that we care about that affect the most traumatized kids in America. So that's me.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Margaret Fossig. I serve in the role of Director of Advocacy and Public Policy here at Boys Town. My role and that of the advocacy team, along with Father, is really to represent organizational interests that support kids and families and the mission, vision, values of the organization. We participate in both national, state, and local advocacy, influencing public policy issues, again, that impact the patients, children, and families we serve, again, while aligning with the mission. We bring the Boys Town mission to life through that of voice and relationships, those of our kids that have that lived experience, those of our parents and families and patients that have had that lived experience. So we strengthen and help support and advocate for quality health care, mental health, community and family-based services, quality residential services, and really removing any barriers that are included in the educational system.
Awesome. Thank you for such a wonderful overview. It's great to have you both on, especially for this topic. So like I mentioned at the beginning, October is Youth Justice Action Month, which we also refer to as YJAM. So Margaret, will you tell us a little bit more about YJAM?
You betcha. And as you said, Youth Justice Action Month, also known as YJAM, fun little acronym. So really what that is it's it was a national movement that Boys Town began partnering with over 6+ years ago with other national leaders and like-minded partners throughout the country. The intent is really to raise awareness and educate the public of the impact that juvenile justice system has on the children that it serves. Specific emphasis of YJAM is really placed on creating policies that keep kids out of the juvenile justice system. So really floating services on the front end, those preventative services to ensure that they don't come into the juvenile justice system. And if they do, how do we end the treatment of youth as being served as adults? How do we invest in family and community services to prevent those kids from having to languish in detention and incarceration? It also includes eliminating gender and racial inequalities that are contained within that system and ending the direct filing of children in the adult correction system. So really a great month to pay tribute to those that work in the system, those kids that have been in the system, and then looking at solutions to and interventions that will divert these kids from ever having to come into the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's clear that this ties in very closely with Boys Town and our values. So Father Boes, what is Boys Town's philosophy on advocacy and juvenile justice?
Well, to answer that, Gabby, I'd like to tell you, first of all, some statistics.
Yes.
And then make those statistics come alive with a story.
Oh, perfect.
It's got a happy ending, but a really sad start, just
Okay.
to set you up. So most of the laws allowing the prosecution of teenagers, of juveniles under 18 as adults, most of those laws were written prior to the huge body of research that's come out showing what a bad idea that is. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, multiple studies have come out showing that if a child is prosecuted as an adult, as a teenager, they're 34% more likely to commit a crime as an adult and to be incarcerated as adults. And of course, since this affects poor kids and kids of color, that makes it, even worse because of the racial bias that's involved in this kind of a system. So what we really want is to have an opportunity for kids under the age of 19 to get the help they need so they don't become these, future offenders. Our philosophy is reform is right for the kids. So that's the most important thing. And we want to, raise the minimum age at which someone can be tried as an adult. So Father Flanagan started that, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but we're still living that here at Boes Town. Actually, I might just go into that right now.
Yeah.
This is part of our history here at Boes Town. Father Flanagan was the one who helped us to create this system of care that we know of as the juvenile justice system. When he was around about 100 years ago, it was just starting. There was, there were a few juvenile courts, like the closest I think here was one in Denver, one in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And every kid was tried as an adult, no matter what age they were, because they were just part of the one justice system. And of course, this meant they were tried as adults and put into adult prisons, which is really a horrible place for a kid. So Flanagan thought this was bad. He decided to fight for kids one-on-one. After the Boes Town movie, he became really famous. So 90% of Americans saw this movie about Father Flanagan. And he used his fame to fight for kids. So he fought to have juvenile courts started around the United States, advocated for that, and then pressured judges whenever a really dramatic case would come up. Like, for example, in Iowa, there was a kid who stabbed his father to death using a pitchfork in his barn when he was pitching hay. And his father had been raping his mother regularly in the barn. And he saw it happen one more time and just lost control and killed his father with the hay rack, with the knife, with that pitchfork. So he went to prison, or he went to court. Father Flanagan went to the trial, talked to the judge, talked to the prosecutor, and said, "Hey, send that kid to Boes Town. I can take care of them. I can turn his life around. Don't put him in prison for the rest of his life. You can understand why he did this." And the judges, if they disagreed with Father Flanagan, he would hold a press conference and he would denounce the judge that made the decision, and the judge would lose the next election. This cushy job that this judge had, suddenly it's gone. This happened to dozens of judges and one governor in Father Flanagan's time. And suddenly these judges who were opposing juvenile courts were like, "I think we need a juvenile court in our area." So similarly today, we advocate for systemic change. There's lots of national partners we use to do this, and Margaret can talk about those. But I'll give you an example of how we fight one-on-one for kids, even still, just like Father Flanagan did. There's a 10-year-old girl a few years ago who was convicted of murder as an adult. She was 10. 10. They put her into an adult psychiatric locked unit. They had no orange jumpsuit small enough, no chains around her tiny little wrist that would fit. They just kept falling off. So they had to special order this change and special order the jumpsuit. They did let her walk around with a doll under one arm. That was it. So we advocated for that girl, went to the judge, went to the court, and allowed her eventually to be sent to a Boes Town residential facility where she belonged, where she's now getting the help she needs. She's going to lead a great life. She's going to be a good citizen, and her life will be saved and society will be better for it. So that's why we do this work.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those stories. I mean, sometimes, just as you said, we can say these statistics and post them all day long, but really hearing the impact of what Boys Town is doing for, little boys and girls in those situations really kind of
Yeah.
emphasizes it even more. So thank you.
One of the things that really helps is that because of our neuroscience research,
Yes.
our experts can be expert witnesses in these instances, and we've offered those to kids across the country that are being tried as an adult. That's really important. The teenage brain is way different than the 24-year-old brain, and we can talk about those differences in a scientific, meaningful way.
Yeah. So why now? I mean, this continues to be a problem in the United States, is this youth incarceration. So why is it so important that not only just us at Boys Town, but everyone is, aware of this and continues to advocate for youth in the juvenile justice system?
Margaret, you want to take this one?
You betcha. Well, and Father nicely summed it up when he referenced the adolescent brain development. And based on what we know about that, with the research that has come out, and Boys Town's a huge contributor to that research on adolescent brain development, it really is about allowing kids to be kids, right?
Yeah.
Giving kids second chances. Kids make mistakes. Guess what? We as adults also make mistakes. So why would it be any different when we're all given those second chances? And, rather than bringing those kids into the system for, something petty or minor that they were engaged or involved with, made, a poor choice or a mistake, it really is about them giving them second chances. These kids are the kids of our future. We need to lean on them. We need to rely on them. We need to teach them. We need to support them, and we need to give them second chances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add, Gabby, that again, this goes back to Father Flanagan. He said there are no bad boys.
Right.
And what happens is when there's a big public case involving a dramatic crime, usually the county attorney has to decide whether this kid's bad or not, right? And if they're bad, then they get sent to adult court. Well, Father Flanagan famously said there are no bad boys. There's bad environment, bad training, and bad example. And we prove that every day here at Boys Town. Kids that have come out of the criminal justice system to Boys Town, especially our residential, but even in other services, we help turn their lives around. We prove that a new environment can shape behavior in a positive way. And it's just a kind of a different mindset. The way I think about it now is when you first hear a dramatic case about a crime, don't ask, what did that child do? Ask, what happened to them?
Right.
What was that environment that shaped that behavior that you see, that dramatic, crime that they committed? What were the, precursors to that? What was the environment? What was the training? What was the example? And I think that when you put all that in place, you start to have a heart for kids like Father Flanagan did, and you can come up with solutions that are based on science and that actually lead to better outcomes socially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you basically just answered my very next question. I wanted to know more about why these alternatives to youth incarceration, like the Boys Town Family Home Program, is so needed today. And I think that really summarizes why.
Yeah, I think that's, Margaret, unless you have other statistics.
Yeah.
Who are our national partners in this, Margaret? I always, there's a national coalition, right?
Yep, there's several. Yeah, there's several coalitions and associations, and the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act, right? That was back in the 70s. That was intended to do just this, the things that we're working on, and at the national level, at the state level, with our local probation and juvenile court systems. So, yep.
Yeah. That's great. And along with, some of our national partners, we also do have things happening right here on the Boys Town campus that our kids are involved in. So, Margaret, will you tell us more about the Boys Town Policy Fellowship Group?
You betcha. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite times of the year when, so over 5 years ago, Boys Town partnered with Nebraska's Voices for Children, which is a statewide advocacy organization here in Nebraska. There's other Voices for Children across the country as well. With the work of Voices for Children, we were able to select through an application process some of our youth that reside in our residential program here on campus that were interested in learning more about advocacy, about youth rights, to learn about utilizing their voice, raising their voice to help shape policy, taking their voice and their lived experience and story to legislatures and decision makers. And so each year we, through an application process, select between 10 to 15 students, again, here on campus, that participate in about a semester long fellowship where they learn about, again, their rights, they learn about policy, they learn about their legislature, they learn about, all sorts of things related to advocacy and policy. And then at the end of that is they select a policy platform based on their experience that they would like to shape. And at the end of the semester, we invite local stakeholders and statewide stakeholders to kind of a celebration here at Boes Town. These youth get up and they do a presentation on their policy of what it is that they'd like to change and reshape. It could be child welfare, it could be juvenile justice, and really it ties nicely to the self-government work and the foundations of Boes Town's model that we do work and here at Boes Town. So it's a really, really nice fit. That event is coming up here mid-November. The kids get up, they're in their, holiday best clothes, and they present to a room of about 50 to 60 adults on what they'd like to shape and improve in the child welfare and juvenile justice system. So really great program.
And who better to, get up and talk about it than our kids who have been through those experiences themselves. So
that's right.
That's awesome. Well, we wish them all the luck as they present here soon.
And they do a really great job. If you've never had a chance to attend, Margaret, maybe we could open this up to a larger group. I don't know how many can fit in the room.
Right. Yeah.
It really is inspiring to see our kids get up and tell their stories in an appropriate way, right? We help them to tell their story in a way that makes sense and it has appropriate boundaries. But to have them talk to, anywhere from county officials to court officials like judges, juvenile court judges, and officials from the juvenile court, lawmakers, people who are now running for Congress, they've talked to, they've had some experience that will be very valuable to them. And hopefully this kind of constituent voice is valuable to the lawmakers and public officials that hear firsthand the impact of their decisions on the lives of young people. Because I think that's what set Father Flanagan apart 100 years ago.
Yeah.
He was one of the few people that actually listened to kids living on the street and learned their experience and then shaped an environment for them based on their feedback and their ideas. So hopefully we can do the same in this modern era.
Yes. So we have one more question. It's kind of a loaded one for both of you. What is one thing that you want our viewers to know about juvenile justice and the efforts Boes Town is making to improve the system?
Okay, Father, I'll start it off if you don't mind. So again, I kind of referenced it earlier about we believe in giving kids second chances and overcoming some of their challenges, barriers, and mistakes. But again, with that, having treating kids as kids, allowing them the chance to develop and grow and learn some of those skills themselves, those skills of self-government, giving them second chances. Really what we want to do at Boes Town is, we talked about our residential program, and we also talk about right service, right time. So Boes Town has a continuum of services from, least restrictive to more restrictive. And again, that's based on the child's need, the family's need. Every child, there's no one child that's the same in our country. So again, looking for the right service, right time. 96% of the kids and families that we serve never leave their home, school, or communities. But there is also that need for that quality residential service. And so maintaining model and fidelity to our services and systems is really what we believe is going to help make kids be successful.
Yeah, I think I'd add, Gabby, that the commitment to these kids goes all the way back to Father Flanagan. During his lifetime, he brought to campus over 100 kids who had been convicted of murder as adults. And we continue in that vein. At all these levels of care that Margaret's talking about, we have kids who are convicted of crimes, some of them pretty serious. Of course, some of these circumstances are pretty weird. Like, recently we had a kid, I won't say how recent, but, who did a terrible crime. He rode up on a bike and shot somebody.
Yeah.
But minutes earlier, his brother had that same gun to his head and said, I will pull this trigger if you don't go do this crime.
Yeah.
So he did it under threat of death. And so, yes, he did a terrible crime. But again, what happened to him?
Before.
What were the circumstances that surrounded this one action? One action does not define a life. And I think that's the Boes Town difference, and why we are places second chances, starting over, making amends, and becoming good citizens after maybe not being a great citizen with that one action.
Yeah. And that story in itself is why we are sharing this message of advocacy during History Week. So Thank you both so much for joining us today. And I know we could talk about this subject probably all day. There's so many facets to it, but even here in just this 20 minutes has been very valuable. So thank you both so much. Thank you all for watching. And
thanks, Gabby. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Gabby.
Have a great day. Happy Halloween.
Bye-bye.
Bye.